So I was just miserable after, I don't know, 3, 4 days of rain and dragging around in it. And my shoes are wet. And I changed my shoes. And then those shoes are wet. How many pairs of shoes do you have? And now all your shoes are wet. And all, like I'm out of socks. So now all my socks are wet, right? Like now, so I'm living in this like doom cloud of rain. That's how my life felt at that moment. And I was
Sure.
walking down the street, like, 5 blocks from my house, like walking down the street, hating on life. Just, this rain just, objectively is horrible. It's objectively horrible. And isn't that sad for me? And I'm like, there's this little kid. He was tiny. It was like, I mean, 2 or 3 at the most, walking ahead with his mother. And like, he's like, I'm watching him, like he's like, 50 feet ahead, and like, and his mom is just kind of letting him do what he does, and we're walking in the rain, and he's like he walks like very purposefully up to the edge of a huge puddle. It's like bump, 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 edge of puddle. And then both feet splash, jump into the puddle. Like that
Yeah.
was his, and it's like, I just looked at it and I was just like, it could all be absolutely not what you think. It's like you're like
Yeah.
objectively everybody in the world is hates the rain. And it's like here's a 3-year-old who has found a marvelous solution to, it's like walk up to a puddle and jump in with both feet. Like,
How much fun
like,
is that?
okay, I'll learn for a 3-year-old.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the podcast Beyond. I'm Tammy Zagarelli. This is my brother, Mark Zagarelli. How you doing today, Mark?
Hi, Tammy, how are you today?
I'm very, very good. So I wanted to just introduce everybody, if you haven't been here before, this is a podcast about happiness and not just about being happy because we hope everybody's happy, but the idea that happiness can actually be the booby prize. And we want to take you from not just being happy or learning how to be happy, but how to get back to happiness. If happiness somehow feels like it slips away in your life, and it happens for everybody, there's no one in this world that spends their entire life happy. And I think that sometimes if we sort of grow up in great families, this is ironic, right? Great families, great people around us all the time, and we spend a lot of time in happiness, then if it falls away for one of many reasons, someone in our life gets sick, we lose a job, something can happen. How do we get back there? And this podcast is sort of based on the idea of how we get back there, and also based on the idea that it sort of comes from something inside we like to call inner guidance. Is that kind of a good explanation to you, Mark?
That works for me, and I hope it works for the people who are watching. And what you said, I just thought of it. It was just you usually start the podcast by talking about this idea of going from happiness to unhappiness, but also no, say that again. Going from unhappiness to happiness,
Yeah.
going from unhappiness to happiness, and then the idea that it can slip away from people. And when it does, understanding first, noticing that it did, and second, knowing how to come back from it. And I was struggling a little bit in the last couple of weeks and not really sure why. And I've got a couple of things that I do when to try to bring myself back. And I know that you also mentioned that, you are kind of going through some stuff and what you do to bring yourself back, or what I like to say sometimes is bring myself forward, not just back to where I was,
Good.
but
I like that.
forward to a new, better, higher place where I understand myself better for having gone through whatever I was going through.
And also, someone, a long time ago explained this to me, and you kind of, I think, subscribe to this too, is that we think that life is linear, but it's more like a spiral that's going up. So many times people will say, how am I right back where I started from? And if you think of a spiral, like a slinky, if you pull it up, like it's spiral and it goes up, it may seem like you're in the exact same place that you were before, or that you've kicked yourself back to a bad place. But a lot of times we're just at a new level of something that feels very familiar, but we have moved sort of up the positive slope, as we say, towards a greater happiness. Like our unhappiness may be relatively bad for where we're at now, but maybe not compared to say the month after my divorce or something like that, or there's many different levels of unhappiness, but pulling ourselves back or walking ourselves back or running back to happiness, if you don't see the road, how are you getting there? And
Yeah.
that road is not always apparent. And also, I don't know if this is true for you, but veering off the road can sometimes be very, very unclear that it's happening when it's happening. We make these subtle choices every day, and we don't know exactly, we're not sure where every decision we make is going to take us. So sometimes it can take us off track. And what are the methods, and what is what I call the destination of happiness? For me, over the years, to be able to put things into words has been very important. So for me, as I get older, I know that no matter what things feel like, the connection I have to my own inner guidance, which, you can say is sort of the portal to all things that are good in the universe, and something that I think feels, and at least to me, that it resides somewhere inside of me, even though I think we're bigger than our bodies. And we talk about the other side of the equation just really quick if you haven't been here before. We also talk about the inner critic, which is somewhere that resides, to me, it feels like in my head somewhere. And I don't really need to do much explaining about your inner critic. I bet y'all we don't have to explain too much about your inner critic. But inner guidance is something that it's a it's it's something that we develop. It's a relationship that we develop with something greater than ourselves that sort of resides inside us and outside of us. How else would you explain it? I don't know.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, what you're saying. When you're talking about you said inner critic, I think most people are like, oh yeah, what that is. Although I think it's good to talk about it because
true.
sometimes I think especially when you're at the beginning of a journey, you know,
Hmm.
um, and it could be any journey. It could be just you're just young and you don't have a lot of experience in the world. Or like you said, you've just gone through a divorce and you're like now out on your own again, or whatever, the kids have grown up, or like whatever situation it is. You've decided you're going to date and now you're like putting yourself out there and it's scary. Whatever you are when you're at the beginning, you sometimes, I think, mistake your inner critic for the truth, you know.
Oh, oh, I love this because also your inner critic. So I'm going to give you my 2-second version of what I believe the inner critic is. Many people can call it your ego. The words really don't matter. It's what words, the words matter only if they matter to you. I use the word inner critic interchangeably with what someone might call the ego, but it's sort of the conglomeration, as we say, of all the negative things that have ever happened to you, your trauma, and even small slights that happen, a fight with your mother when your mother yelled at you when you're 5 years old. It's not something that we're going to blame, but it is it's a big weight and lump that sort of lands in your life, and we start taking it very seriously because it is very loud, very mean, and very attacking. And that's very different than the inner guidance, which is people say, well, I naturally have a relationship with my inner critic. Yeah, because it's always screaming at you. It's drawing your attention all the time. Your inner guidance is waiting for you.
Right.
It's waiting for you to sort of start believing in it. It talks and speaks very softly to you. And it's the loving force in this universe that is always there to help you. And some people might relate to that as God. Some people might relate to that as their moral compass or a higher power or whatever you want to call it. The voice inside of you for God, you know, your gut instincts, for gosh sakes. That's, if, we don't need it to make this religious. We happen to be more spiritual, but we don't need to do that because I work with many atheists that I say, do you understand what an inner guidance is? And they're like, yes, exactly. Yes. Or they're like, no, I don't believe in that. And then I'll get a phone call. And this has happened more than once. I had an inner guidance moment. I'm like, really? And I mean, where it's something that is working with them. It's a feeling that you're sort of working with something in this universe that's got your best interest at heart.
Absolutely.
And
Yes. Yes. And I like that. And that's a good distinction between what has your best interest in heart and what doesn't. So
mm,
your inner critic doesn't have your best interest in heart, and yet it will throw things at you that seem defensible, you know. Well,
well,
you
it always uses a shred of the truth,
right,
like because the inner critic does not have to play fair.
right,
So it can use anything. It could use the good things that are happening in your life against you. Oh, who do you think you are? Like, oh, so you think that makes you da 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 da. And it can use the bad things. You have a bad day and it's like, oh, well, see, this is life, the way that life is.
right.
Toughen up, girl.
Main thing I wanted to point out was that like it's when you stop seeing it as something that's talking to you, telling you what's wrong with you or what's wrong with the world or what's wrong with the situation, when you start seeing it as sort of objective truth, then what happens is you don't even realize it, but you're the one who's spouting it and saying it. And you're looking at the world as if, like, I'm going to give you a goofy example. I'm going to give you a
Oh,
total,
good.
and this is as goofy, I think this is as goofy as it gets. Just to talk about the idea of objective reality and how very entirely malleable that thing that you call objective reality is. I
Yes.
okay, so I was a couple three. This was like the sort of the end of the COVID times when I was people were kind of getting back to their lives, but it still wasn't quite resolved. It was like I didn't want to say the summer of like 2021, something like that. Went on the road a few times. I have a friend, Khan. Shout out to Khan if you're watching, who at the time was a trucker. He was a cross-country trucker, which is I don't know if like when I was a kid, that was like a fantasy. That was the idea of like, like maybe growing up and like being a trucker
Yeah.
in the country, whatever. Didn't, for me, that didn't materialize or manifest. Maybe nor should it have. But the coolest thing is to be sitting in the passenger seat and not have all the responsibility. I mean, granted, I wasn't getting paid, he was getting paid, but not having all the responsibility. So I'm in the passenger seat and we're doing long trips, like, where he'll drive like 800, 1,000 miles a day, like as much as he can.
Really?
Oh, absolutely. Like crossing
I never knew that.
crossing
I
the
mean, I knew he
country,
did it, but
crossing
yeah.
the country like 3, 4 days, that kind of thing, depending on
Wow.
right, with breaks and stops and got to get this to that place, whatever. Okay, so totally entire, really cool
Terrifying.
adventure. No, no, it wasn't. I mean, your mileage may vary. See, again, like objectively speaking, it's either terrifying or it's not. You tell me. I don't know. But it was
Yeah. 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 I'm telling you. Yeah,
okay.
scary.
So
Good,
the
but I
goofy,
can see
okay.
how it could be interesting.
See, right. Okay. So the goofy part of the story is he's got a refrigerator, okay, which makes sense. Like you've got a refrigerator, you've got like, you've got a lot of food, we got, all sorts of stuff so that you don't have to stop every 5 minutes and, buy some, whatever. So got a refrigerator. So we're on the road for about, I don't know, 2 days, something like that.
Okay.
And night now, it's dark. He's still driving. He's still got like 3, 4 hours to go, whatever. And he says something about that refrigerator thing is driving me nuts. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Now I've been on the road with him for 2 days, okay? And
Hmm.
he says that clicking. And I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean? And he's like, oh, don't you hear it? It's like the refrigerator. There's this clickety click.
Now you do. Now you hear it.
Right, you see where this is going, right? And it's like, no, I didn't
I,
notice it. What is it? He's like, oh, don't you hear that? It's like, listen. And then I'm start listening. He's quiet. Takes, no music on or whatever. And I was like, it was like, it's, like literally like a piece of metal banging up against two other pieces of metal, like bang, 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 bang,
oh
you know.
my gosh.
And I'm like, wow, that's really annoying, right? And he's like, yeah, I know it is. So from that moment on,
Oh no.
right. Now, he's been living
Now
with us
you're
for
trying
I
to
don't know
put
how
put
long.
pillows in there to
Oh,
fix
but
it. You're trying to
right.
you're
That's that.
oh my
So that you
gosh.
see, the like the like there's the 5 stages of when you're going to die. There's like like there's the five stages of what you do when something really annoying enters your field and you can't do anything.
Yeah.
There's like, there's oblivion, there's denial,
And you
there's
wish you
I'm
were in
gonna fix
oblivion
this.
still.
There's like like I'm gonna, I can deal what I went through, but for about, I don't know, 3, 4 hours, I went from, I'm going to go back there and I'm going to fix it. And so he's like, I tried to fix it. Good luck. And he's very mechanically inclined. And I'm like, I'm not,
Yeah.
I
No.
mean, if he needs to, he can fix his truck on the road kind of thing, unless it,
Yeah.
so, long story slightly longer. Um, after I get to the point where it's like it's clear to me that I can't fix it, and I'm gonna have to live with it.
Wow. I've
Going,
been there.
I'm going batty. I'm sitting in the chair going batty, and I'm like, and he's laughing at me. He's like, you're going off the rails, and I'm like, you're right. I'm going off. I like, if I had your permission, I would have you stop the truck. I would pick it up. I would throw the refrigerator out onto the road. I would write you a check for the new refrigerator that you're gonna, or we're like, let's
Yeah.
and we're gonna buy a nice new, because now remember, for 2 days, the objective truth was I had no, you can be in this truck and have absolutely no problem with the sound. It literally didn't exist for me. The minute it was
Wow.
pointed out to me, now the objective truth became that is the most irritating thing I've ever endured in my entire life, and I will do anything to stop it. And
Yeah.
then having gone through that, then he's laughing his fool head off at me. And it's like, okay, now it's a thing. And he's like, yeah, it's a thing. And I'm like, okay, I got to get Zen. I got to just like let go and let God. And I did. I got there. But
I think the
that's,
important point is that
yeah,
the objective reality is that
there's
there
no
is no
objective
objective.
reality. Like the idea is if somebody, so when somebody says like that thing is wrong, that thing is terrible, those people are awful. Like, and especially notice when it's negative, because if
There you go.
somebody's
That's
coming
it. That's
at
the
you,
moment.
there's the moment, right? Because if somebody's coming at you with like, weren't they just the nicest couple that we met in the restaurant? Like, don't you want to have a life full of experiences like that? Oh, I just met this wonderful person, and then this other interesting person, and then this really charming kid, and then I met this grandmother, and she was love. Like, you'd like to have a series of that, but you don't. And when something goes negative on you, it's, your inner critic isn't saying, so this is an experience you're having. It's saying that person needs an attitude adjustment, right?
Right. And also a great thing to notice from your story is that when the inner critic starts going, it's always a bad, 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 bad girl, bad guy, bad thing, bad thing,
Always.
bad thing, bad thing.
Right.
And and also for me, I find the inner critic sets you up with there's no way out. There's no way you can live through this trip to, I guess you were going to California if you're going cross country,
Yeah.
um, that you can live in a world where this refrigerator exists. And that's the thing is that there was a time before you heard the rattle of the fridge. And then can there be a time after that? Is there a way to get, that's what I'm talking.
That's it
Unhappy
exactly. Right.
happiness,
Happiness to unhappiness to happiness again, right?
right. And it's also the idea of, the ignorance was bliss. You were happy.
Right.
Something triggered you to say, do you notice this in the world? Right?
Right.
And that's usually the inner critic.
Yeah,
It's
this shouldn't
always
be.
pointing out.
Right.
It's
These things
pointing
shouldn't
out and
exist.
pointing out. And
Right.
also, let's just be real here. Sometimes the answer is buy a new refrigerator.
It can
I
be.
live in a small place and my refrigerator was loud and it was driving me cuckoo bananas. And the answer to the thing was I can be upset about this, or I really could get I bought within days bought a new refrigerator, and that was the end of that problem. But the thing is that solutions are not the inner critic's intention. Problem, problem, focus on the problem, 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 problem. like solutions come from, it also stops you. It cuts off the blood flow to the solution. Does that make
It
sense?
absolutely does. In
It
fact, there are times when I know darn well that the last thing my inner critic wants is to find a solution. It wants to be right. It wants to be angry. It wants to be incensed. It wants to be heard. It wants to, like, it wants everything but a solution.
true, very true. And the thing about it is that when we are so riled up and we start literally fighting for our own limitations, which is the number one sign of that you are speaking from your inner critic. When we start saying, like, I'm, if someone says, well, here, I have a brand new fridge, and you say, no, I'm gonna overcome my relationship with this fridge. I'm gonna tough it out. It's not gonna beat me. And you're like, someone's handing you a new fridge. You get so ensconced in the
Yeah.
relationship with your inner critic.
Yes.
What happens is that we are not our inner critic. I would say it's a kind of stuck to us. We sort of pull it away, and we are living into being our inner guidance. Our inner guidance is our best, it's our connection to the best part of ourselves. So, and there is no downside to the inner guidance.
That's right.
It will, if you need to be angry, it respects your need to be angry. If you are hurting yourself in some way, it stands back and allows you to be like, you want to be upset about this? Go for it. It's a really weird kind of a thing. Like, the inner guidance has complete respect for you, even if you're not being kind to yourself, but
Right.
it will never be unkind to you.
Right.
So it seems very we always again mistake kindness for weakness. We
Yes.
don't understand the power is in the love. Love is more powerful than fear and more powerful than negativity. There's all this strength over here, but it's not going to impose itself on you. That's what it's not going to do. Inner critic does not have to play by any rules other than gimme, 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 gimme. It feeds off of your fear and pain.
That's right. So
So,
I think it's really good to see those two perspectives. Like those are two ways of playing the game of life, right? I mean, and
and
you,
we're always playing back and forth with them.
yeah, we're
But
always
the one
playing
thing
back and
also
forth.
I want to say, I don't know if this is helpful to you, is that I've heard so many people say this, and until I am proven wrong, I get people who say you need to make friends with your inner critic. You need to understand it's just trying to protect you and all, like, and I am not down with that. My thing is you need to disengage with your inner critic, freeze it out, look the other way, ignore it, but do not engage it.
Hmm.
Like, do not, understand that if something inside of you is trying to protect you, then it's not glommed in with the inner critic. The inner critic can be coming from being triggered from when you needed protection when you were a kid. I'm not
Yeah.
saying that you get the difference in what I'm saying is like these are very subtle
So it
things.
came from, like, I get what I would say is it came from something legitimate. And
Always
always, where else would it come from? Like, right,
trauma,
right.
trauma,
Trauma
like
was, it was a
something,
legitimate response. Well, what I'll say is it was a legitimate but outdated response to trauma. So, like, we
or
talked about it.
or
Like
it's throwing you back to where the trauma was,
right.
and it is so afraid. If we see it as it instead of us,
Hmm.
like, I would like to see people sort of, like, learn, well, like with inner guidance, if we almost give it so much reverence that we don't see that we are a part of it and it is a part of us, and that's what we're, living into a more loving part of myself. Yes, there is something greater than me, myself, and I in this world, and I'm not, but that connection comes from my inner guidance, and that inner critic is sort of the the part of us, even if it's in some ways there can't be anything in this world that is really that awful. And I understand why people are saying like make friends with it in a sense. But my thing is that you're doing it no favors by making friends with it. If you just the best way in some ways to soothe a screaming child is to not engage in when they're screaming. It may be to
I
just
agree.
soothe,
Right.
soothe.
And it can be or it can be as much or as little as just allowing a screaming child to, okay,
There you go.
screaming moment, not hopefully not in a supermarket to annoy 50 other people. That might not be the moment, but there's like, okay, we're having a screaming moment. I'm gonna go stir my chicken soup while you scream on the bed, and then we'll come back.
Right.
And
And it can be as simple as you have a screaming child in a restaurant. Does it ever work to start screaming back? Maybe you just
I
pick
had
the
a
child
really
up and say, let's go for a little walk. Let's go for a walk.
it's funny that you had I had um, a memory arise. I actually this the memory must have arisen when mom was still alive because I talked with her about it. And I found it to be unpleasant at the moment, but I didn't find it to be problematic or anything like that. I remembered that well, we used to go to Howard Johnson's when we were kids. That was our go-to
I
restaurant.
know what you're going to say. I remember this. I was
You
very
remember?
young.
Yeah, I was very young, and I was like, I mean, I must have been very young, but I do remember it. I was, out of control screaming in the restaurant, and she just pulled me out back to the car. I think she opened the passenger side door and sat me in the car and sat there with me and said, "We're not going back in the restaurant until you calm down." And like
Wow,
basically,
that's an evolved moment for
we
mom.
can
That's
wait all night.
great.
We can wait all night, kind of thing. And I'm like, hey, I want to go back. Because obviously the thing that she wasn't allowing me to do now was the thing. I want to go back to the restaurant, right, right, right. And like, we're not going back in the restaurant until you calm down. That's just it.
Wow. That's
Right.
really evolved for her.
It was very evolved. And, it was like, well, now I obviously calmed down sometime between that moment and the moment that we're in now. So it worked.
Also, my memory of it is different. It's
Oh,
like
yeah.
my memory was that you guys disappeared
Mm.
and I thought, to be honest with you, I just thought she just left you there and left like and went for like I didn't think she sat with you.
Oh yeah, no, she sat with me. She sat with
That's funny because my memory was, I remember we always ate the same thing at Howard Johnson's. I always ate spaghetti and meatballs. I got it was may have been Chef Boyardee
me.
spaghetti and meatballs, and you always ate a fish sandwich.
Your
And I
sandwich.
remember looking at your fish sandwich and being like, "Huh, how much
Is
was
she
eaten on
ever
that?" Or
coming
what?
back? What do you think?
I was like, "Huh." They left, and in my imagination, she threw you in the car and she left and went off somewhere.
That's not what
That was
happened. Fortunately,
the way that's isn't it funny? Again, objective reality.
right.
There is, I want to I mean, quantum mechanics has finally put an end to the idea of objective reality. There is no objective reality.
I'd like to think so. I
Well,
would really like to think so.
science proves it when whatever we look at, they have proven scientifically, not, it's not emerging science. It is science. This is like 20 years old and started in you know, the observer effect was, sort of born in, I think it was 1901 was when it started becoming a
Really
thing. But
early, right? Yeah,
when we look at something, we affect it. You cannot be a part of something without having a subjective view of it.
right. Agree.
When people stand in objective reality, almost when I start even to think that I'm having an objective opinion, I always know I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Like, and you know how much, and people laugh when they say, you really love being wrong. And I'm like, I do. I do love being wrong because being wrong gets you to right. Like
Well,
being wrong gets you to
yeah.
right.
I like being a little skeptical of myself. Like I like having just a little bit of, or like you said, because the moments when I am not skeptical of myself are the moments when I should really have been, right? like I'm not wrong, I'm right about this, and here's why. It's like,
When you're
well,
really
I'm
fighting that
entirely
hard for
off the
someone,
rails. Like as long as I'm able to say, like as long as I'm able to say, like, oh, I'm enjoying this television program. Are you like? It's like,
be that's a great
I,
place to be right. There,
or
that's
not. It's sort of.
when you're
What
joyful,
I'm
you're
saying
right.
is, I could be watching a movie, with someone and thoroughly engage, and I think it's the greatest thing ever. And then I turn to that person, and say, is this great? And they're like, I don't know, I don't care. And
Well,
like,
you and I do we do that with
or
movies all
vice
the
versa,
time.
it could be like, oh my God, this movie is just ridiculous. And they're like, I don't know, I really like it. This is really cool. I wonder what she's going to do next. And I'm like, it boggles the mind. I have a friend who can be a very astute critic, and the only part that I would want to tweak him on, because I think it would be the thing to tweak him on, would be when you say, for example, like, oh, she's not a very good singer. Could you say it as, oh, I don't think she's a very good singer? Like, that's all. Because the not goodness of her singing doesn't reside in her, it resides in you. Like,
Right. It's
you know,
exactly when I heard someone I love say, I mean, I think Barbara Streisand is like the voice of a lifetime. And I just love Barbara Streisand. And just every note that comes out of her mouth, she could sing, as I say, the phone book, and it sounds great. And someone said, I think she's very talented. I'm like, what? I mean, almost, my jaw dropped. And then I also love Bette Midler. I just do. I think she's fab. And she, and I know people that someone else said the same thing about her, and I was like, huh. Like I just didn't get it. And because this is just an opinion. Like we live in a state of one opinion after another. And
yeah,
also, there's nothing wrong with having an opinion if you say, to me, this
right.
is like reference yourself because we are interacting with this universe whether we like it or believe it or not. Look up I mean, people out there, the observer effect,
Mhm.
how we affect solid, stable things in this universe. I say all the time to my clients, your electronics are people too, because of the fact that and we are affecting how many people out there, like, put it in the comments. When you are jangled in your energy, isn't that the time your phone glitches or your computer goes offline? And I have kind of learned with my clients because this is so routine. We spend more time, to be honest, with our phone in our orbit than we probably do with our husbands, our wives, our kids, our dogs, and energy is energy. So now we've got a joke because I used to see people get very upset about this if we're in a session. No, we do it on Zoom or one of the other platforms that works for somebody, and it'll start glitching. And I always say, "Ooh, this is good. It must mean we're moving vibrationally."
Right. Yes. Yeah.
And it works so well because when something is glitching, if our energy is moving, especially upwards, which is usually happening in a session, we're not usually going down. We're moving our energy up, and the mic's cut out, or something goes wrong. Why, if we believe that we are engaging with things, if our vibration changes, why wouldn't the things around us have to catch up?
Right.
Just
Agreed.
like in a relationship, if one person says in that tender moment, like, I love you, there's, it's a point counterpoint. Like you're going to make a big rift in the relationship or change in the relationship, or something amazingly warm and fuzzy is going to happen if you say, I love you too.
Yeah.
Or if you
Yeah.
or if you don't say that, it's going to be, this is
Something else. Right.
but that's nothing but words.
You've reminded me of, did I tell the story about the car alarms on this podcast yet? I don't know if I,
The what?
okay, then I guess not, right? Because you'd remember it would only be, yeah, okay. So car alarms. This is
No.
it kind of is, it's a little bit like the refrigerator
Sounds like
story. It's like
Carl's Arms. I don't know what that's called, you know.
car alarms. Carl's arms? No, car alarms.
Oh, well, I know you have not told us
I
here.
have not
I
told that
know
story.
what it is, but it's sounded like Carl's Arms.
Carl's
And I
arms.
was like,
No.
I don't know
I hope
Carl and I don't know his arms.
if Carl, if you're out there, I hope your arms are okay. Okay, so no, car alarms. And remember,
Car alarms.
they used to be worse. Like I think that the car alarm thing, whatever that is like that the day of the car alarm being like the scourge of the city has like come and gone. It's like risen and it's fallen, right? Like, but there was a moment when if you lived in a city, I lived in San Francisco at the time, in and that you literally heard. Why I shouldn't say you literally because I'm making it sound objective. It's like I heard car alarms 10 times a day. Okay.
Wow.
That was my experience because, and then um, I got to the point where I was like, I hate these things. So it was again back to the clickety clickety click with the refrigerator, right? Okay. So I would be working at my computer, at my desk, in my, third floor, second floor apartment, third floor apartment, well, like right in a bay window, like where you could hear the car, everything on the street. And the car alarm would go off seemingly every 15 minutes. And I would just go into the red. And that was, and at the time I was doing a lot of work. I was I'd done landmark at that time. I was doing like discussion groups. I was in California and San Francisco, and there wasn't a California San Francisco thing that I was not doing. I was like
Right.
fully gone California at that point. As an East Coast boy, now I was gone California. So, and it emerged that, it was like, well, Mark, have you like, I mean, I didn't, no one even had to say this to me, but I had to say it to myself. It's like, so this is a thing that you're having. This is a thing that is in your experience. Because it's not like you walk up and down the street and then the car alarm goes off and 20 people like scream and yell and make a big fuss about it. It's like this is the thing that I'm having. So I said to myself, self, what would you do about this? What could you do? And for whatever reason, it occurred to me that if it was 500 years ago, when we're living in a little
Mm,
town in Europe, you would hear church bells go off very, very frequently,
very true.
right? Church bells would go off morning, noon, and night to tell you it's the morning prayers, the evening prayers, whatever. And that would be directing your life. And so I said, okay, so how about every time a car alarm goes off, I think to myself, oh, that's church bells. That's a reminder from God to think of God, to pray, to be with God. This is a reminder from God. And I will do that. And
It's
next
great.
time car alarms went off, I was like, oh, a reminder from God, a reminder to be with God. Here I am. And I was with it.
And you're
And
not so it's not so untrue because first of
entirely
all, I live
true.
on the right, but I live near a church. I
So
live on the
you have
18th
that.
floor.
Right.
Right. And when I first moved here, the church bells drove me crazy because I would be, you would think on the 18th floor of this building, I would not be able to hear car alarms nor um, fire trucks. But I was like, I moved right near a church at every hour on the hour.
Right.
It would go, and it's a really beautiful sound for about a week.
Right. So
And
it could have
then,
been the same. So it could have exactly been the same. It was,
but I thought of your story.
yeah. Oh, because I
That
told you.
story,
Right.
you told me that story, and I thought to myself, you know, you've got to like incorporate and embrace it in your life as a beautiful thing. Like,
Right.
how beautiful. And a week or two in, I really did think of your story
Hmm.
that I thought to myself, would I rather this be car alarms? And
Okay.
I've never thought about it again. I thought
That's
to myself,
great.
I actually
That's
have
great.
church bells.
Yeah.
And it is beautiful. And sometimes now when I don't feel like, my phone's across the room and I want to know what time it is and it dings one or two, I'm like, oh, it's 2 o'clock now.
Right.
Like it changed it was the what we're talking about is a paradigm shift. And it happens. The other story is really, I want you to tell really quickly, or I will tell it, but you can tell it, is that when you used to walk out from stores and you swear
Oh
your car
yeah.
was stolen.
Right, absolutely. That's another one. So it's like I guess I'm telling on myself of like all the weird neuroses
That's
that,
okay. I got some
but like
stuff.
everyone's got weird neuroses. It's like so like notice them and if you can handle them. Like I right, I would I okay, in my car has never been stolen for the record. I've been a driver most all of my life and I didn't have a car in the city for a few years because I didn't need one, but like I've owned a car like a lot of years. My car has never been stolen for the record. And yet I had a recurring thing that every time I would walk out of a supermarket into a parking lot where I couldn't immediately see my car, I would think my car's been stolen. And it would be like, inevitably, it would be like some big van pulled in front of my car, or I thought it was over there, but it was actually over there. I came in the indoor and I went,
Yeah.
like, there was always an explanation, and the car was always there. And so finally, I just started saying to myself,
But that panic that happens,
right, the
that
panic arises. And then what I started saying to myself was, so, Mark, this is what you do. Remember?
right,
And it was
right.
like the idea of bringing like getting triggered and then bringing my frontal cortex back
You're
online.
yeah, bringing your and I like calling it bringing your inner guidance back online.
Right.
What would a loving person when you're wondering, people are like, you know, your inner guidance, what would a person who really loves you say?
Mhm.
And that's the sound of your inner guidance. Your inner critic is saying to you immediately, "Oh my God, the car could be stolen." And it's like, no matter how many times it's Lucy in the football when Lucy sets up, "I'll hold the football this time," and it's like it, it's you've been driving for years, your car has never been stolen, but it can say the exact same triggering thing to you,
And you'll
and
buy
you
it every time.
buy it. So a lot of times we have to sort of put into our like before we walk into the store, we say to ourselves, okay, I am going to do a few things. You know, I'm going to notice the exact number, they have this post with the numbers where we are, or you're going to walk outside and you're just going to, the thing that soothes you. We've got to we've got to be able to have a different listening because it's so quick and easy to hear how could I do something 20, 30, 40, 50 times in a row and still believe it every time it works out that it's going to be the opposite today. Today's the day because that's how powerful negativity and our inner critic is. It is that powerful because it goes back to something very primal in us, an old wound that is not quite healed, and we're going to go through our lives and we're going to have to go back sometimes to the scene of the crime of the original wound, and that is where great therapy comes in, and I've had some great therapy in my life, and the wound gets healed. But sometimes it's just this, like this this nasty habit, and like inner guidance is always giving us that preventative measure, like nudge nudge, like, oh, I've like, and your inner critic will use this positive thing to make it a negative thing, which is like, oh, I can't get this thing to work, and so something terrible must be happening. And so why do I love catchphrases? Like, it used to, back in the day when sort of the new age spirituality, it was like people say everything happens for a reason. I love that saying, for a long time. And now I upgraded to everything happens for a good reason. And, we've been through something in the past few days where, your computer went down for a second, your computer, and it's like, and then, but it, and it's like, oh my God, this is a bad thing. And it's like, if everything's happening for a good reason, maybe something good's going to come out of this particular situation, and something did good came out of it. Something did. Sometimes the extra step where you say, "Oh, I can't believe I'm getting ready to walk out the door and I left my lunchbox, my lunch inside." And you walk in and then you realize, because I have an automatic locking door on my apartment,
Mm-hmm.
if I walk back in and pick up the lunch that I forgot, the keys are sitting next to it. And I
Ew.
think, it's not that I can't go downstairs and get a key. I live in a big building and there's a concierge here, but the point is that that's a hassle.
Right.
The thing that, like, oh, my inner critic, you're so, like, you're so stupid for getting your lunch. And the inner guidance is like, this is a gift, honey. Like, this is a gift.
Yeah. You know, it's
You forgot your
interesting.
lunch and you saved all that time on the back end with your keys.
Right. The way
Ooh,
I'm thinking about it is this is like another sort of take on it. Like, um, okay, again, another one of those, funny, like another one of those, it seems like there's a theme developing. I didn't know it was here. Um, Objective reality and then something completely different. Okay. I remember
subjective reality.
yeah, like I mean, so I was again living in San Francisco. If you know San Francisco, it rains. And sometimes it rains all the time for days. Like it's like,
Sure,
okay, so normal, it's like it's like normal weather in San Francisco. Less, like then there's droughts and it doesn't rain for 6 months, whatever. But like, okay. So I was just miserable after, I don't know, 3, 4 days of rain and dragging around in it. And my shoes are wet and I changed my shoes and then those shoes are wet. How many pairs of shoes do you have? And now all your shoes are wet and all, like I'm out of socks. So now all my socks are wet, right? Like now, so I'm living in this like doom cloud of rain. That's how my life felt at that moment. And I was
sure.
walking down the street, like, 5 blocks from my house, like walking down the street, hating on life. Just, this rain just, objectively is horrible. It's objectively horrible. And isn't that sad for me? And I'm like, there's this little kid. He was tiny. He was like, I mean, 2 or 3 at the most, walking ahead with his mother. And like, he's like, I'm watching him, like he's like, 50 feet ahead, and like, and his mom is just kind of letting him do what he does, and we're walking in the rain, and he's like he walks like very purposefully up to the edge of a huge puddle. It's like bump, 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 edge of puddle, and then both feet splash, jump into the puddle. Like that
Yeah,
was his, and it's like I just looked at it and I was just like, it could all be absolutely not what you think. It's like you're like
yeah,
objectively everybody in the world hates the rain. It's like here's a 3-year-old who has found a marvelous solution to, it's like walk up to a puddle and jump in with both feet. Like,
how much fun
like
is that?
okay, I'll learn for a 3-year-old.
No, but the thing is, like, and it's true, because like I'm a very big thing of, people always look forward to summer. And
Mhm.
I do not like the heat. It's not my thing. And I don't I'm an East Coast girl, so I don't really complain. We have a very short summer and a long winter. And people, as the summer comes to an end, I sort of suffer through the summer and go to the shore at least a couple weeks of the summer. And that when I'm sitting by a pool, I do not hate the summer. I'm not, I'm sitting by, this nice place by the pool. And people are like, summer's coming to an end. And inside I'm like, yeah, like, because for me, like, the first smell of fall, that, like you get one day in August that smells like fall, then it gets hot again, and then, within a month you're getting fall. And I'm like, yes. And everybody at the pool, I usually go, to visit family that has a pool. And they're all like, it's the summer's coming to an end. And I loved the summer when I was a kid. I mean, we spent all our time at the beach and it was awesome and wonderful. As I get older, I just have an aversion to the heat. uh so I just think to myself, and I try to just keep it under wraps, because people are really despondent at the end of the summer. And I'm sort of like, like, it was great. I love the holidays. I love the seasonal wet. People say to me, well, are you saying you like those 17-degree cold days outside? And I'm like, well, if you gave me like the 100-degree day or the 17-degree day, as long as I'm, you know, in heat, in a warm place, yeah, I prefer it. It's just, but like we just think that everybody's like us, and that's just not the way it works.
No, it's
It's
not
not
at
the way it
all.
works, but like I kind of want to take this a little deeper here today. I want to go a little deeper and talk about like because we are talking about getting back to happiness and the sort of these are sort of everyday things. But everyday things need to be talked about because the idea of I want, we people always talk about objective reality. Let's add into the equation subjective reality, which means that you're viewing it through your lens, and that is a point of view, but it is not the point of view. That's just like no matter no matter how much you want to stand on a soapbox and tell me about the objective reality of anything, we are always in motion, we are always learning, we are always evolving. So there and our interaction with it really matters to me that people understand that their interaction with anything affects the outcome of that anything.
That's right.
Subjective reality. Let's bring it into the conversation because we all think we're above it. And there isn't, it's like being above, oh, like I know that, gravity, it affects most people, but, for me, I'm not really affected by gravity. Honey, you are affected by gravity. If you live on this planet, so subjective reality, like there is, you are affected and you are affecting because there is the winter isn't bad and the summer isn't bad, but your feeling about it is, making it so. And Shakespeare said it best, right? Like,
Yes. Yes.
nothing is either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. And it's true. And it doesn't mean that there aren't things that are collectively thought of as really bad. Like, you're not going to walk up to a person who's just lost someone in their life and say, that's not really that bad. Like we're not talking about that, but we're just talking about taking some ownership of your preferences.
Yeah.
I love to call them your preferences. We have them and we're allowed to have them, but they are not the objective truth all the
Right.
time.
Right.
They're preferences. And things that I want to get, like, you wanted to start in, we were going to, we happen to be going down a path of like, you know, what is happiness and how does the inner guidance affect that? And how do we lose sight of our inner guidance or maybe all of and live in the shadow or the vomit really of the inner critic, right? We sort of like walking around with vomity poo poo all over us and not knowing it because the inner critic is coaxing us to be a worse version of ourselves. But there's, the idea of this podcast is that happiness is a beautiful thing. We don't want to come up with the idea that this is not true. Happiness is wonderful. But how we get to happiness and then being able to hold on to it
And
and
sustain
then
it and rekindle it and um, name it and understand it so that we can bring it to other people. We can help other people. Like, yeah, exactly. Like it's the what I don't alchemy isn't quite the right word, but it's the
it's a great, I love that word though.
alchemy is a good word. It's like you said, like everything is a relationship, and it's like, what is your relationship with happiness? Like, is happiness a stranger that
Right. Wow.
is happiness a stranger that visits for the night and then disappears, and until they visit one more time, you're bereft? Is happiness
It's a great
like
way to
a
look at it.
faithful dog that's always there, that just as long as you give them minimal attention, they'll like and notice that they're going to be there. Is happiness like, I'm just made up two things, but what is happiness? What is that for us?
And for me, happiness has always been very elusive. It's one of those things where I can definitely say that you know, my friends and I call it comparisonitis, where you
Mm,
compare yourself to other people a lot.
Yeah.
it could be abject jealousy. Like
Right.
these are the places that my pitfalls, where somehow when they were giving out, like, doling out happiness, before we get into this lifetime, it was like I was, in the bathroom putting on makeup that day, or something. I just was like, you know, for me, happiness has been the most elusive thing in my life. It every once in a while it shows up. It doesn't feel like it has anything to do with me. My
Yes.
own unhappiness, I take full credit for that, and I'm not meaning this to be like it's not a good thing. It's a good thing to take responsibility for the negativity that you produce in this world for the purpose of creating more happiness.
Right.
And my happiness is I don't I can see that happiness is all around me, but it's always feels like a party I'm not invited to.
Mhm.
And that's why this subject is so important because I I I have been in some ways tragically unhappy in my life, but I sort of play a happy person on TV.
Mhm. Mhm.
I appear, people are always like, you just seem like such a happy person.
Right.
How
Right.
could you, right? You know what I mean? And it's not that there's a difference between personal unhappiness, like that sort of sadness that one feels inside. That's what I'm talking about.
Yes.
And miserable, where you're trying to vomit misery onto other people. That's not exactly my brand, but what happens is that no matter how if you're living in a state of unhappiness, it's no matter how much you're trying to hide it, it's spilling off of you and onto the things and people around you.
Yes.
And and I've sort of always been and I'm calling myself out and jealous of people that happiness is something they stumbled upon. You've been one of those people, and it's to me.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
knowing you, I know that that's actually not true. You worked very hard.
It's not true. Yeah, it's weird.
It's not true. You
Because I
worked very hard for your
remember
happiness, but you appear and you have so much more gratitude. Not like you are a very grateful person.
I am.
And you are
I mean,
loyalty,
I am a
gratitude.
grateful person. I mean, I feel like, and I don't mean like, how do I put that? Like, I mean, I am so grateful that I just feel like I've
You are
given a lot. I mean, and I've been
right,
given a whole lot of, yeah.
and that's why things keep coming to you because what you believe about yourself, you attract more of. And so my I have struggled with um gratitude in a strange sense of like, you know, and and but to know what the work is, that's to say having more gratitude is part of the work. Oh, I'm glad I know that now. Like I haven't been I've been a person who has wound up unhappy because of things that happened very early in my life, but I've always been a lifelong seeker of happiness and seeker of love and the greater good. Like it's the juxtaposition is very strange, but it is true that I just when I have happiness in general, I know why, and um I can say I work it up the plan of like, okay, this brought me happiness, so I'm going to repeat that. I'm going to do that again. If kindness, like it's if it's if being kinder to myself, which is sometimes not appealing, is the way to sustain happiness more, I'm going to work on being kinder to myself. Like I'm willing to do the work, but for me it's been like, what is the work?
Mhm.
Like where do you find gratitude? And it's like the simple things. And so I did have a like a lot of my foibles in life come from lack of gratitude or lack of knowing how to really sustain things that I think are or have were taught earlier to people or they got different things. So I sort of I'm on a I weave and bob through happiness, like weaving and and for me, why this podcast is so important about because I think a lot of people are struggling out there and they also don't look like they are.
There's a
Like,
lot. You're absolutely right. You're right. There's a lot of loneliness. Um, and what I was gonna say when I think about that, like, um, there's 100 years ago, there was a lot more starvation in the United States than there is now, and 200 years ago, even more, right? And
sure,
starvation is a huge problem. Now, that doesn't mean that just because today some people struggle with a weight issue, that doesn't mean that you want to say to someone who's struggling with their weight, like, hey, get happy. 200 years ago, people were starving to death. That's not a solution. And
no,
I use the same analogy for saying, like, I think 100, 200 years ago, people were stuffed in together in very, very uncomfortable circumstances. Like either in cities, people lived on top of each other, or in the country, people lived, you might live in a very large farm, but like you live in a very small house with all of your family, and it's cold
true.
outside, right? So you we people I don't want to. I'm not a big believer in nostalgia. Like when I think back on like when people watch a show like
Yeah,
Bonanza, and say like families were so happy in the 1870s or whenever Bonanza.
yeah,
And I was sort of like, that's a TV program like that, like there was hunger, there was, there was a lot of, like bad things but now we have the luxury of a lot of people have their own space. Some people have their own
sure,
house. Some people have their own apartment. They don't share quarters with anybody, as opposed to 50 or 100 years ago, you'd be sharing with a lot of family members and never have
sure.
space. But now we have the luxury of also, like, I have a remote job. Lucky me, which I'm really happy about, and I like my remote job. But it does mean that I have to really work to interact with people, like, because otherwise I'll just be on my
Yes.
computer all day long, right?
Well, let's just stop right there. Like,
Yeah,
that's one of the fundamental differences between the two of us is that you are like, we both work remotely. I'm a life coach. You travel a lot and you're writing your books and you're, having your clients and all this stuff. And you are much more naturally, um, what's that word?
extroverted.
Not extroverted,
Yeah,
and I'm much more naturally introverted. So for you, like the way I could say, like the kinds of when talk about, like, I'm not trying to talk negatively about myself, but I'm when getting better, you have to be honest. It's like there have been times and I'm like, it seems so easy for Mark. He just, we will talk almost every day, and it's like, oh, I'm in Malaysia and I met these great bunch of people and blah 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 blah, and I'm like, I live in a city, like right now I happen to be in Philadelphia. I was in New York for the past 10 years or so. And I'm like, I've been here for 2 years and I've met like two people that are great, fantastic people, but like, wow, like every time you move, like you kind of go on a circuit from like Malaysia to Thailand, and every day you almost have a story for me of how you met somebody new. And I'm like, what is that magic? Like, and there is a certain amount of it that is a little magical because it's just who you are. And then but you put the work in. And that's what I'm saying is that if I can learn what the work is for me, it may not be exactly the same as the work is for you, but each individual road from you, if you were not seeing enough people, you'd be sitting there at the end of the day crying in your soup in the way I have been at times, but you're doing something about it. So from what I can see is that you are going out there, and we know being on the phone when you've been walking through the city and you're saying hello to people and you're engaging, and I think to myself, that's so unusual. Like, I wouldn't be doing that. I would just be on my headset. And so you're doing the work, and the work isn't exactly the same for everybody, but we have to start distinguishing, is this a complaint that I have? that I'm not willing to work on? Is it a complaint that I have that I'm willing to work on? And who am I willing to share? This is where I want to go with this.
Hmm.
And who is it that I want to share if I'm genuinely working on something? Who do I want to share what I'm working on with? Like I'm sharing it with the world right now, like, that I'm very, very introverted, almost painfully introverted at times. And and so what? Am I going to find happiness by having that complaint about being so introverted? Or am I going to say, what could I do? What
I
could I do a little
I
different?
think that's it. And it's like, and I got, I really, I don't want to come off like, just get in there and fix it. Like, but there's a little bit of that. There's a little like there is a loneliness, people talk about literally use the word loneliness epidemic. There's a loneliness epidemic in the United States, or you could say in the modern world, wherever you draw the lines, there's a loneliness epidemic. Okay. And I think that one place to land when there's an epidemic is just like, well, a lot of people are going to die, and that's just the way it is. And it's like that's a very, like I think some people may the place they land with it just might be my life is terrible and I'm alone. And that's a very, very hard place to be. That's a horribly painful place to be. But then there are other people who are maybe one step, like, I don't know what to do. I think that, that I think the wise therapists are the people who can weigh in on that level of unhappiness when it comes to, say, loneliness. But let's just say one step further where people are, wow, I'm really lonely and I know it's a problem, but I don't know what to do about it.
So this is
Like,
right the moment where where I have something to say,
please.
because this is a, a really great topic because when someone is really doing well with something like you are, and I'm really doing not so well with something like this, there used to be an us them situation going on for me. And then I realized some TV show, I think it was on ABC 10, 15 years ago. It was called Once Upon a Time. It was it was about fairy tales. I love fairy tales. And there was a there was always the topic that came up of, you know, good and evil. And and somewhere along the line in the show, they started talking about there can always be a third way. And that's the thing that has been life changing for me, because over the course of the past 6 months, I stumbled into happiness, full blown, like, like you always need this once, everything,
Hmm.
the,
Hmm.
all the stars aligned. And I stumbled into happiness, and I was starting to, like, the drama level in my life was coming down, which has caused me a lot of unhappiness. And this sort of feeling that I can work on being less introverted. And I kind of set some rules up, like if people ask me to do something that I care about, love, I'm going to say yes, right?
Right.
And I'm just going to be a yes. I love there's a couple of movies out there like like Yes Man and
Yeah,
like
the great
Jim
movie.
Carrey movies.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Jim
all
Carrey
these
did
kinds of,
a
like,
bunch of good ones that are like at the next level.
yeah, all in the same vein. And I love anything with a little magic fairy dust on top of it. I just love these kinds of things because so many times when we're sitting in unhappiness and we're looking at all those happy people out there, or someone that's got a little more sparkle than us, like you do. When you walk in a room, the room lights up, and I walk in a room and it's like, I feel like I'm looking for the dark corner. And I think to myself, like, I'm going to get to something that I wanted to talk about in the beginning that ties this all together. But this one is on me. And I thought of, what if it isn't that we have to push ourselves a little bit harder, just even, or that we have to accept who we are, like fully. Like I've been down the roads of like, namaste, and I'm going to accept myself as this, you know, introverted, miserable person. I'm just going to own that. I've done all of, and and or I'm going to join like the group that's going to be like, let me get out there, and we're going to all get out there. And I come home is like crying hysterically because it's too much. And I've learned recently that there's a third way. There's something that when you're in a great space, you can't see for another person. And when you're in a miserable space, you definitely can't see for another person, and they certainly can't see for themselves. And if you push your, like, that's what, like, you're just not trying hard enough onto someone
Right.
who's right. But the third way is, what if there's a different way for introverted people to be happy? And that all this pursuing of my inner guidance has has taught me now to say, when I'm unhappy and I'm viewing someone externally that is happy, and my inner critic is immediately saying, you should be more like them, which is exactly what all people that, like, if, like I said in this podcast along the way, I'm on a weight loss journey. If I want to be more like them, I have to do more of what they're doing. And that sounds so reasonable, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And ultimately, in some strange way, you're going to get back right there. But what if it is that your inner guidance says to you, to Tammy, okay, you want to be more like a person who's an extrovert? In what ways feel right to you? Slightly, we go back to the slightly better thing. And for me, one of the things was just, can you think about being an extrovert around the people that you're already very comfortable with? And I'm like, yeah, but that doesn't really qualify as extrovert, because
But that
no, no,
sounds
no,
like
no,
you're in a
no.
critic coming back in.
Bingo, ringo.
I just heard
So
it.
it happened,
Right.
right?
Well, that's not really
It's
it. Right.
That's not really so, because our inner guidance is trying to give us things that an extroverted person can't think of. So it's saying, as an introverted person, you know, who's on a weight loss journey, would it be more comfortable for you to exercise at home? Well, yeah, but like real exercisers go to the gym. Inner critics who spoke again.
Yep.
Like, okay, would it be, would, as an introverted person, isn't it doing something extroverted to go on a walk with one friend rather than join a group of walk people who go on walks every week? It starts to have unique answers for actually Tammy Zigarelli,
Yes.
which
Yes.
is when we go always external to Mark, how should I be more extroverted? How can I be? And I saw myself always looking outside of myself. And I started with looking outside of myself, saying, what are the complaints that people have about me? You're too dramatic. Okay, I can tone down you're too this. And I started having happiness by doing some of these things I sort of shoved myself into.
Yeah.
And then I thought, well, this is the answer. Look at every single person that you admire and take on a piece of their personality, and you will have happiness. And you know what? 7 months this year, I was happy. I was doing it all right.
So it was
I
what?
was I was feeling elated because my friends were like, your drama level has come way down. And I'm like, yeah, because I'm 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 doing this the way they do it, and I'm doing this the way they do it. And you're getting out more. And I'm like, well, you're doing this the way they do it, and none of that was bad, except for the fact that I wasn't consulting something inside of me. So eventually the universe is going to give you either exactly what you're asking for. If that was all the right ways for me, parts of them were. The universe is going to give you exactly what you want, or exactly the lesson you need. So it gave me a problem, which I'm not going to get into here, that was bigger than anything I'd ever had before. And I was like, copying other people's behavior was not enough to control the need for my inner emotions to erupt. And I thought, where did happiness go? Why can't I get off the couch? Why am I doing like what's going on here? And my inner guidance, my inner critic was like, and it wasn't going to last. Da, 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 da. And then all of a sudden, my inner guidance was like, you've got to weave together being inspired by other people, inspiration, and weaving that into an authentic version of who Tammy is.
Yes.
Uh, Tammy is not going to go out 7 nights a week, but she can go out 1 or 2 nights a week. And that's authentic to me. Tammy's not going to go on 2 trips out of state in 1 month. Not going to happen.
Right.
So, because what happened was you know, I had planned, I haven't been out, I don't travel a lot. So in the need to go and like, I'm going to be like everybody else, I'm watching everybody travel in the summertime. I booked 2 trips back to back to each other. So I ruined 2/3 of the, or a third of the first trip because I was worried about the second trip and I canceled the second trip. The irony of this is that you have to weave. So where I came to this was from watching my own unhappiness erupt from from it can't be only someone can't coach you without checking it in with your inner guidance. You can take great coaching and be inspired by great people, and you know you might want to become Michael Jordan. You might follow every single thing that he did and still not become Michael Jordan,
Because
but
I'm
you
short.
could become a better version on the court, a better version
No, because I'm
of your
short, I said. On the court. No, I said because I'm short.
right. But there was this. I remember there's some really famous basketball player who's 5'3",
Yeah, he's like
one
I
of the
can't
most
remember how,
famous
it's
of all
maybe not
time.
that short, but really short.
No, he was yeah,
Really?
yeah,
Okay, I'll look that one up.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Look it up. It's
Yeah.
and the thing about it was we can't avoid this. s- I was mimicking is a very good start, but it's not the only thing. It's like modeling. I remember that from Tony Robbins many years ago when his first book had a lot of really great points to it where you model other people's behavior. But if you don't weave it into your own knowing and your own inner guidance, and that leads me to the point that I really wanted to discuss today is that part of what happens is that when we constantly compare ourselves to other people, when we put if you were sharing about yourself and we're in a conversation about introversion and extroversion, I'm talking about one of my worst traits, something I dislike about myself. So here I am opening myself up to someone. Obviously, you are the kindest person to me. So you never, bad girl, bad girl, bad girl. You give your best, but you can't know it all. So if we're talking about problems that we're working on in our lives, our own personal unhappiness, someone else may be talking about the best thing. Like one of your superpowers is your extroversion, your ability to go anywhere and meet almost anybody and have them invite you back to dinner, probably on another trip, take you on their boat, like you in one day, and then come back at the end of the night and they're thanking you and asking you for that recipe that you talked them about. Like it's like the whole thing. So you're putting a superpower up against what? My kryptonite.
Right, that makes sense. And that's a recipe for a very unhappy moment for you. For anybody who's, you know,
But what also,
Struggling.
what does it do
Struggling.
also? This is what I'm saying also. This is the terrifying part is that when you have a superpower and you base your coaching on your superpower, we would never do that in your field as a teacher. You would never walk into a room of young people where your superpower is math and their kryptonite is math and say, y'all aren't doing working hard enough.
I would never.
You
You're right.
would you wouldn't do it. But in coaching, people find a superpower and they bring that superpower to a coaching session with someone and they say, you ain't trying hard enough. But I'm asking those coaches to be more like teachers and say, would you, if all things were equal, I have some superpowers. I do. I can talk anywhere, anytime, anyhow to anyone. If someone walked in a room who was looking and we're having a discussion about extroversion and they're phenomenal at extroversion, but they're terrified of speaking in public, would they be willing to put on the table to have the same discussion with me about I'm terrified of speaking in public. And I'm like, well, I'm terrified of extroversion. And then get into a conversation like, wow, that's really interesting. How could you be an introvert who's not afraid of speaking in public? That's when we start opening things up and really
Right.
getting into some great conversations. But if you just walk around in your life, karma, she's coming to get you,
Oh,
where you're putting
absolutely.
your superpower up against someone else's kryptonite, and you're saying, I got this. I got this. I got this. I got this. It's like most of the time we've all got something great. But when we're working on ourselves, we're working on the things that are not working. And in teaching scenarios, I find it's a much more brilliant way to come at it is that someone's coming here who doesn't know something. And I'm here to show them without shaming them.
That's
But
really
in the coaching, does that make sense? But in
it makes
coaching, we
it's
walk
what's
around
yeah, right. What's interesting is that as a teacher, there's times when I found that it's more essential to coach, if that makes sense. I mean, I did put the words education coach like right there, right? There, right.
because you have taken it to the next level. You are not just a teacher.
Mhm.
You are a person who should who does coach the teachers, you coach the parents, you coach
The
through
students
your books,
coming from a
you
place
coach the
of
students.
so sometimes teaching is, I mean, like, and coaching can also be contrasted to therapy, where it's like, what's the difference between coaching and therapy? What's the difference between teaching and coaching? Because, like,
Love it.
why do we have, idle question. Why do we have math teachers and baseball coaches? And step back
Yeah.
a minute and say, like, where do most kids want to spend more of their time with the teacher or the coach?
But that's the irony of it is that there are and when we think about like I love the idea of like when you talk to a musician, I'm going to go play tonight. And you talk to another kind of person who has a job and they say I got to go to work tonight. Like it's the essence of it. When you think of
Someone's getting
when you
paid to
think of a
play, and somebody's getting paid to work. Right.
right, and you
Yeah.
if you think about it, all these words are interchangeable. I'm using them um because a football coach might say get down and give me six more reps of that, push up, but that coach has already been there.
Right.
I'm talking
Yeah.
about frivolousness in the way that, and I'm not even talking about people who are getting paid to coach. I'm saying parents who are sort of coaching their kids and saying, you're not working hard enough. It's like, well, are you willing to take your child's biggest fear and your biggest fear and put them both on the table?
You're reminding me of something, and like the person I'm about to talk about is like, it'll be obscured. I mean, it doesn't matter. But I know that this person also ended up putting some work in after this story, which is good. Got challenged, put some work in, and got
Really,
moved
it's
around.
great.
Well, what I'm like, there was a person I used to work with, and they used to say, we're teachers, right? Okay. And they used to say, I don't know, Mark, every year these kids get dumber and dumber. And I remember thinking at the
No,
time,
no,
like,
no.
You've been doing this job too long. But also the
Hmm.
other piece of it was um, you're you've been teaching the same thing the same way for so long that it's easy for you. And I got a rude awakening about that. Like even as a teacher that was aware of, I know that teaching is a hard job. I'm not going to tell anybody that teaching is not a hard job, but being a student is hard in another way. Being a teacher
Absolutely.
a lot of times isn't in.
This is the moment. This is what you're saying, exactly what I'm talking about. Bingo, ringo.
Right. Like being a teacher is to be dwelling in one superpower, whatever that is, in a room full of people who are living in kryptonite, right? And when it's math, right.
100%. This is
Right.
it. This is the moment.
And when I went to Japan for, basically a year, and I was sitting in a seat in a Japanese classroom, like where the teachers are like fluent in Japanese because they're Japanese, right? They're doing nothing but talking Japanese. And I'm going like, I'm dying a thousand deaths here because I'm not getting what they're, like I'm not getting it. I'm not remembering the words. I'm not remembering the structures of the verbs. I'm not, there's like 20 things coming at you all at once. And that for me was a kryptonite moment. That for me was like, so that's what it feels like to be a student
That's
and
There you
confused
go.
and shamed and freaked out and worried and bored and
Right.
stressed and yada yada yada. Right. I'm like, okay, remember that next time you're standing in front of the classroom.
That that's the third piece of the puzzle. That is what all of this conversation has been coming to is that where are you coming from? If you can hold on to the person sitting in front of me, if you are in any kind of power position, is most likely in their kryptonite. Not always, but most likely. And if you can remind them that they also have superpowers, you are, if you can remind them, oh, God chills. So, okay, must be talking about something important here. That I know this seems hard today, so and so, but let's remember all the great things about you. Let's remember that you signed up for this class because you are quite brave and you are sitting in Japan because you are a person who lives into your dreams and makes your dreams come true. So if you can take that extra third thing, which I call, we have three things going on here. We have superpower, we have kryptonite, and the person sitting here has the ability to blend it into special sauce.
That
You
makes
can say to somebody, yes, your kryptonite is that you don't know how to speak Japanese right now, but your special sauce is comes from your superpower of blending something that you're traveling is a superpower for you. But when you sit in this classroom, blend those the superpower, put it in the pot with the kryptonite, and you've alchemized this. Is that the good way of using that
that's
word? You've
absolutely. I think that's a
Okay,
good.
because
Yeah. Yeah.
that word was came up early in this in the podcast, and I'm like, this is where the magic is. This is the magic, is to understand where are you sitting. If you're sitting in your superpower, like, congratulate yourself for that, because maybe you worked really hard for that. But it's also, you've got to be aware that everybody's got something special. Maybe, and if you put what they're graded up against you, you're going to be cowering just like they are, and they're not. It isn't maybe even it may not even be appropriate to say you're just not working hard enough. It may be to say you think like, they've proven this too. Do you know that doctors who have performed the same surgeries over and over again for 40 years are not, they have proven that they are not getting better at doing that surgery. Someone who's been doing it less time is still in the place where they're improving that.
Right.
So when you talk about a teacher who's been working for 30 years, teaching a class, they may actually be teaching it in a way that's outdated or old, and they what they're considering their superpower is like lackluster.
Yeah.
So the idea that you're sitting in a classroom and maybe you think speaking Japanese over and over again is going to help somebody pick it up, but you're not that good. And maybe a better teacher would say, wow, this person's really struggling. Let me help them in a way that works for them.
I will say this. I will say just in my own like, and in talking with Guang Yao, my partner, my best friend, who was in the same like, he's Chinese and he's learning Japanese, which is way easier. If you're Chinese already, learning Japanese is like the languages are very same. It's like learning English and Spanish. They're really close, right? But he struggled with learning English in high school because in China, he says his thing is always all they do is teach you to take the next test rather than have you speak it. And we
Mm.
both had the same experience in two different Japanese classrooms where it's like I remember there was literally one day where for whatever reason they broke us into groups of like 5 or 6 people and we sat in little groups and we spoke Japanese. And it was so cool. It was like to be able to ask someone questions in Japanese about, oh, like, what country do you come from? And, how long have you been studying Japanese? And, do you have brothers and sisters and stuff? And it was like, why can't we do this every day? Rather than just back to the old verbs, like back to the verb forms, like which I'm a grammar nerd and I'll do the verb forms, but to not have any reason to speak it or connection, that made me really sad, so it's
Well, that's why
sometimes
so many
it's
people
not
don't
you, it's
learn. Did
yeah.
you learn Spanish or French really in high school? Like that's how they teach it in America.
I
And
didn't. I didn't. I learned the language that I had the most luck with was Italian. I learned it, from an app, a really good app, and then from a one-to-one language tutor, and then in language classes where we spent pretty much all the time engaging. Like,
in
but it's like,
conversations,
yeah, because we would have like an hour and a half class of grammar, which was actually pretty engaged, actually, and then an hour and a half class of simply conversation.
right?
And the best
Yeah,
conversation teacher just, she would just bring and like she would just bring you could bring in anything. I mean, in a classroom, you could bring in like, these are my glasses, and you're saying it in the target language, like these are my glasses. I can see, now I can't see. I can see, now I can't see. Try them on, see if you can see. Like, you don't have to say anything interesting because everything's interesting when you're learning a language.
right, right. And so that's the thing that I sort of learned is that there's there's we can get very hard on ourselves, which
Yes,
causes a lot of unhappiness,
yes.
and we can be super easy on ourselves, which can cause a lot of happiness. And
Unearned happiness.
feeling, yeah, but the thing is is that real happiness comes from weaving in the third way. To
Yeah,
me, it's not, I it doesn't mean erasing everything, like looking at other people that are much more self-regulated now that I'm incorporating my inner guidance into that. Yeah, that like it does work where modeling myself after certain people and you know making sort of rules I try not to break, like if certain friends ask me out and I know I always have a good time, even if I think I might not my introversion would affect that, though, sort of saying I'm gonna push myself to do that, but never ever again without the checking in with the inner guidance, because inner guidance might say to you, you know, you've been doing great, and you know, you were asked to go out tonight, and you put a stake in the ground and said, I'm never gonna, like, I'm when I'm asked out, I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna do it. But Tammy, you've had like an extra long day. Like today, you can cut yourself some slack. I factor in my inner guidance, always factors me in, because if you give it all away and say, which happened to me, I was like, I'm I said to all the people in my life, you're going to see a lot less drama from me, and you're going to see me being getting out there more and doing all those things. And it happened until the critical mass where one day I put, without checking in with my inner guidance, because I wasn't anymore checking in, I found a method that was working until it didn't work. I put I put two vacations in a 1 week vacation, which would have had 4 days off, then another
Right.
1 week vacation. And I, from the first moment of the first vacation, I knew the crash was
I was gonna
coming.
say it was like it's what I call a coyote moment. Like
What's
what's the
that?
coyote moment is like, you know how Wile E. Coyote is like it's 3 steps off the cliff, and then he has the coyote moment where it's like,
Love it.
oh, I'm going down, and then you go
I'm
down.
going down. And then you
Yeah.
go down, but that the coyote moment, that is going to be incorporated into it all. That's exactly what it is that methods work. You could say to yourself, I'm going to go to the gym every single day. And I have amazing clients that, like, you know, 5 days a week that go to the gym, up at whatever, in the gym by 9, da, da, da. And yet without grace, the grace period to say, yeah, but like today is like a special occasion, and like something, if you don't factor in it's when it's tough,
Yeah.
like this tough love thing, and and you see people out there that are doing it, and the conversation immediately goes to, yeah, like it 5 steps to a better body in 6 months. Get up every day and go to the gym every day with no excuses. And if you can do that, and that is part of your path, then I say follow it. But when when you take yourself and your humanity out of the equation, it's a what is it, Wile E. Coyote's moment. You know what I mean? Like,
Coyote moment. Coyote moment.
coyote moment. It's a coyote moment. It's like, you just, you're out there, you run off the ledge, and you're like, oh,
There it goes.
because perfection is something to strive for. It's a beautiful, I used to do this thing called the perfect world experiment that I created, and I would write every day. And someone said, oh, I don't like the idea of the perfect world. And I'm like, it's aspirational. There is no perfect world, not on
Right.
this planet, but
Right.
it's aspirational. What would your perfect world look like? And it would change every day. It was a writing,
Yes.
project. If anybody ever wanted to, I could send them the format to do it. And I did it for, I think, almost 2000 days.
Yeah. Yes.
And
Yeah.
it really helped
Well, I was loving it.
to,
I was enjoying it. It was three
yeah, I
questions,
used to send
basically
it
like
out.
3 questions, was it?
Yeah, 3 questions is, what's going on in my life right now? You write just a paragraph, no less than a paragraph, and you can write a book if you want to. What I love about myself and my life. And the third question, write whatever you want about that. And the third question is, in my perfect world, dot, dot, dot. And you number it. You know, I say email it to someone you love, or if you don't feel comfortable enough doing that, some people do it in a journal. They don't want to put it online in any way, or to a therapist or coach or whatever. For me, I sent it out to many people, and many people sent it to me. And I would not cross pollinate. Like, I would never, like, as a coach, I'm taking the information and reading it, but not sharing their problems to other people. I was sort of like, I'm gonna I'm gonna walk the walk, and I'm gonna do it. And over the course of that time, those 1,000 days, which were not all consecutive, there were days off in there. Um, Almost everything that I wrote down eventually went from the perfect world section and wound up in the what's going on in my life today section. It was a practice in manifestation,
Yes. Yes.
and it worked. It was wonderful. It was a wonderful experience. And I go back to it every once in a while, and I always read things, and I'm like, wow, remember when that happened? Remember when that happened? But eventually, as you suss out what a perfect day would look like, or what in my perfect world today, dot, dot, dot. And every day was slightly different, and things emerged, things that I almost nothing that I originally wanted, I didn't ever want.
Right.
But some of the things, like when I was a decorative painter, it was like, oh, I just want to be super successful as a decorative painter. I got that, and then I moved on to other things.
Mhm.
So it didn't stay the same over the amount of time I did it, but it was an amazing practice and it worked very well. But it kept remind. I like the stages because what's going on in my life today is just what's happening. What I love about myself and my life, wow, that's the toughest one for most people.
But that's the
Really
thing.
writing.
That's like what's going on in my life right now can be gives you permission to just be like, I'm having the worst day of my entire life, and here's why, and blah 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 blah. Right. And then, but then once you've said that, then the second question being, okay, what I love about my life and myself, it's like, well, today not much, but if I have to say something and I do, I'm grateful for this, whatever
There's
this.
always something
There's always something.
like if, as a parent, there's never a day you can't say what I love about my life is I have beautiful children or grandchildren. Like there's you there's something
Right.
most people can find that it's like, that is something they always love. And do you notice I don't say what I'm grateful for
Yes.
or what I appreciate because I want it to be focused on you've just in the paragraph before probably vomited what went wrong today.
Usually.
So
Or it could be a good
to
day. Maybe it's a great day. Who knows?
what a lot of
Right.
times it is a great
Right.
day. Like, wow, what a great day I had today. But what I love about myself is like a question that like I do pose that a lot to clients. What do you love about yourself? Tell me 10 amazing things about yourself. And it's really hard to come up with those things. But when you the more and we would think that the more that you do that, the more conceited you would get. And
No.
it's the exact opposite.
No.
The more that you
So
can
humble,
genuinely
grateful,
love
humble,
things about
grateful. Yeah. Like,
yeah.
right. Like, because this is the thing that I find is like most of the things that I would like about myself, I would say they were gifts. I didn't, like, lucky me. Like, well, like I said, I think I said there's three levels, and one of these is like, you can call it luck. Then you can use a more Latin word. You could say good fortune. And then finally, you can say like, grace or divine, will or, whatever. But like luck, good old luck is like gets me through like 80% of it. It's like, lucky, lucky me. I had a dad who was like a very good provider and provided me with a very stable male environment so that I could see what it is to get up in the morning and do my stuff. Like, lucky,
Right.
lucky me, I have two eyes that work. Lucky, lucky me, my hand, I like lucky, lucky me, I like have this health thing that's going well. Like I have good
And
friends.
sometimes I try to push people to say, like, what I love about myself and my life is like a lot of times it's like, are you, there are things that you can take ownership. Are you a hard worker?
Right, but even that, I mean, I want to say like it's not like I'm being hard on myself because like at the end, like if you ask me like, sure, of course. And again, lucky, lucky me, I'm a hard worker. I am. But in a way, I don't like that's still grace. It's still I've been
Yes.
graced with, like I haven't I like if I didn't have the job I have, I might not be a hard worker at all. I might be working in a job that I hate and doing the minimum because I every moment is agony. And
Right,
so that's
right.
what I mean. Like
But it's,
again,
I
back to
think it's,
lucky me.
again, I don't think it's either or. I think
It's
it's like,
not.
this is the
It's not.
heart. This is the combining of really like I love your perspective because there is no true ownership in the sense of, we were given this body, we were given
I was lent
where we
this
were
body,
born.
right? We were lent it's
Yeah. Or and I'm
fallen
not even
low,
giving it.
right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
we'll be
yeah.
giving it
It's
back sooner than
will
we
be
choose, right? Right.
right. And at the same time, there is a little bit of when we can say without with sort of like I'm really proud of myself, like I said, I'm bringing back the word proud, like I'm proud of myself because I got through that situation and it was I learned how to navigate that and I did that. There's a little bit where the hubris is taken out of it. that's what I think you're saying is like, it's like, it, it isn't that everything happens completely magically or is complete grace.
Right,
But the idea is that you can't take grace out of the equation because
right,
you were graced with the ability
right.
to understand grace. Does
I
that make
was graced,
sense?
yeah, I was graced with life today that is not my own. It's all on loan. And it's like, it's like, yeah, it's like I don't know what to say. Like if you're a cook and it's like, okay, you're a cook. It's like, but you were graced with a world where plants and animals grow and you get, like
Yes.
you didn't create life, you didn't create the world, you didn't create it. Like so all of the ingredients that you will ever use are completely by grace. And then what about recipes? It's like, well, people have been cooking for 5,000, 10,000 years. It's like all of the knowledge of all the cooking in all the world, all the knowledge of all the spices. Like, of course, there's a core, there's this core. And that's what you were getting at, your special sauce, where it's like, this
Right.
is what
I'm
I bring.
really pushing
This
that
is what
because
I bring. No, and I'm a real, and I don't want to come off at all. Like, it's like, given
no,
all of
but
those things, like you were saying, like all of that. And then there's this special sauce that you bring. There's this one ingredient that the world couldn't be without you. Yes,
right. And it's sometimes it's hard to acknowledge that even Grace wants us to acknowledge the work we put in.
of
It's
course.
a drumbeat. It's a
Right,
drumbeat of like, and
right.
it is like I anything that's so polarized, like because Mark, you just are. I mean, like look at here, how cute, I don't I mean how sweet is that you just have this, you exude gratitude and this lovely way of looking at the world.
Thank you. That's
And
very nice of you to
for
say.
the and if you notice, like the funny part of like today, I'm just happen to notice like my background is all dark and yours is all light. It's like
But I'm
it's
wearing the
kind of
white
like,
shirt and the white back. Okay,
and I'm
that's
wearing and I
right.
mean I live in where I'll never wear anything but black. But
It has
the thing
absolutely no
is,
meaning, folks. There's no meaning to this at all. Right.
but it in some ways like there is. I remember I was living with someone a while ago and the room was like super bright and whatever. And it was a roommate years ago. And they said to me, I've never seen anybody take such a bright apartment and turn it into like like a funeral home and curtains closed or like and I'm like people I always when I'm when I got this place that I have now I picked the dark side of the building which
On purpose.
every on purpose. People are like, well, there's this really bright apartment on the other side. I'm like, no, 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 no. I like I like that feeling that there's like it's a moodiness to it. The sun doesn't
It's so
beat on
Neo
the
Morticia, right? It's like
very
it
much a
used to be like
fan of
or like
Morticia.
walking in with the little spider feet. It's like where's the gloomy side of the building? Where is
I it is the
it?
irony of this is just it does these are the things and it we're so life and people are so different.
Right.
And I am not saying that we are in any way born into the same versions of this planet. No, like there is equality here. No, no such thing. I understand that. But on a grander scale, the things that why we call this podcast beyond, we want to get past the point where we're beyond talking about the factual things on this planet. There is something else beyond that. And I'm calling it our connection to all that is the universe. If we could all get that inner guidance connection, my life changed in for the negative in a week or so and back to the positive in a week or so. When when I talked to my friend who's also a great therapist, I said, I need a session. I need a session. Tell me the what. And it's like the first thing that she said to me was, where is your inner guidance in your life right now?
Yes.
And I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, that's the point. Where do you mean? And I was like, oops, I could have had a V8. I'm like, are you taking your inner guidance in your misery right now? Which I was. It snapped me out of it in one day to bring my, to use the terms of today, to bring my inner guidance back online,
Yes.
happiness came with that because I was just about to go away again for another week. And it was like, nothing wrong with going away. Put it off for 3 or 4 days. My inner guidance and I were communicating. And my inner critic was like, you said you're gonna da, 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 da. And then I was like, what have I learned here? When also, when something is, there's not right or wrong, there's right for you or wrong for you. I have found
Feeling
your
off,
mileage may vary.
feeling off.
Is Yeah, it's feeling off. And when something is feeling off for you, the person you're interacting with, it's feeling off for. So when I called the person and said, do you mind if I come at the end of the week instead of the beginning of the week? They were like, yeah, I've had company all weekend. That would actually be working really well for me. What's great about the inner guidance is it knows the entire
Right.
picture.
Yes.
Your inner critic is only wanting you to feel bad because you're not doing what you said you were going to do.
That's right.
And what you said you were going to do when you involve your inner guidance, it's like, why don't you check with that other person? Maybe that might be a better thing for them too.
Sure.
Bingo, ringo. All of a
Right.
sudden it worked.
Yes.
And this is the difference. We're starting beyond questioning the the um the validity that there's uh you know objective reality, bringing it more into subjective reality, and right and wrong, right for you, wrong for you, and have we is our inner guidance in the mix. And on that note, I think is what I wanted to get across today. I don't know if that work
Yes.
is
It
your
does.
mileage
And
may vary,
I
but
no, completely. I like, and I think as a starting point, maybe for next week or maybe tell something totally else, you're in talking about the special sauce, because the idea of, you know, um your superpower, kryptonite, and then what you bring to the table, which is your own special sauce. It feels like it does like you, it sounds to me like even when you were like kind of looking to other people to see how they do it, that's like, I mean, to go back to the chef, that's like the chef who's at the beginning of the journey saying, well, I'm going to study a little bit of French cooking, and I'm going to study a little bit of Japanese,
absolutely.
and I'm going to study a little bit of Thai, I'm going to study a little bit of Afghani, and I'm going to study a little bit of Chilean, and, and then what happens is nobody on earth has ever done quite the mix of things that you've observed.
Right.
Right. And that is
Right.
that becomes your special sauce. Even you could say it came from them, it
Yes,
came from her, it came from him, it came from that, but it really did. You brought it together. You're the only place that it was all ever brought together.
absolutely. You are the every I love the idea of, like, when it snows in the wintertime, every snowflake, they all look the same,
Right.
but when you put them under a microscope, they're all completely and uniquely different
Yes.
because of whatever, at the way the fractal is created. And my thing is, you can't take two cooks, two family members, and not see that what they bring to the table, they're not polarized as their superpower nor their kryptonite. When we if we keep reminding people to integrate and integrate and come up with our own special sauce, we can live with happiness. We can fall away from it and come back to it. This is a life. You're not going to stay on any one path, negative or positive, forever.
Right.
But but knowing that what we bring to the table, that special sauce we bring to the table, has value,
Yes.
has value.
Yes.
And that's the real.
I love it. I've got more, but more for another day, right? More
More
for
for another day.
yeah.
So anyway, this was great. It was great talking to you, Mark. And,
Yeah.
if anybody is liking this, we love any comments, like and subscribe if you feel inclined. We would love to grow this because we think some of the things we're talking about might be important to you. They're important to us. We don't feel like we're so unusual. So we hope to see you here again next week. And Mark, where will you be in the world next week? Are you still there for?
I'll be on the cusp between Thailand and China, depending on which day we do this. So that'll be cool.
Okay, so we might see the same background and we might see a different
Mhm.
one, but that's okay.
Right.
Anyway, have a great week, Mark, and I
Thank
will talk
you.
to you very soon.
Thank you, Tammy. Thank you so
Bye
much.
bye now.
Bye now.
Bye bye.